On your Tuesday episode of Locked On Raptors, yes, the Raptors got most of their summer work done with the Brandon Ingram trade, but what are the other priorities for the front office in the months ahead? We'll get into that on today's show. Thanks for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, April the 15th, and I am your show host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors badly for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can also find the show on Instagram. And you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join as always. You can also subscribe for free to the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter. QR code on the screen. Link in the description of the podcast. If you're listening on audio only, it's much appreciated when you support us. You can also win some stuff. We'll fill you in on that at the end if you subscribe between now and the end of the month. And it's been wonderful to see all the support for the newsletter. I wrote yesterday about Media Day and the things that were said in the room by the players, et cetera, et cetera. You can go check that out. And today I'll have some stuff on Darko Rajakovic, who I will not be attending the press conference of today because we got to record this fine podcast with our dear pal Vivek Jacob, who is here as we are going to dive on into priorities for the Toronto Raptors this offseason. What should they be looking at? What kind of moves should be on the docket? Of course, as I mentioned off the top, the Toronto Raptors made their big move of the summer with the deal at the deadline to get Brandon Ingram in exchange for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first and a second. And so it seems like things are kind of set. Most of the roster is under contract. Things look pretty much set in stone with a couple of sort of fungible parts at the edges of the roster. And we're going to dig into what else the Raptors should have on tap this summer as their top priorities. They have a big draft pick they got to make, of course. Lots of other stuff going on. And here, again, to do that all with us is our pal Vivek Jacob, Big V from Raptors in 7, his newsletter as well as Sportsnet. Big V, how the hell are you, pal?
I'm doing great, man. And you should put more respect on your name because you've done it for 11 seasons. You're good for a reason, all right?
Yeah. Just being here for I'm a compiler. I'm like I don't know, trying to think of a basketball player who just played forever and wasn't that great. I'm the Anthony Carter of podcast hosts. Just here, baby. You're very kind. Yeah, I know I'm fine. Whatever. Let's get into the podcast before I get uncomfortable with compliments, because that's a thing I need to work on with my therapist. Big V. This summer, lots of stuff could go down. Probably not a ton when it comes to the Raptors, but there's always the optionality for the Raptors who are opportunistic. They like to make swings. We're going to run through. We have 3 things we each picked out as top priorities for this summer. And for me, I'm going to start. My number 1 priority is to swing big for upside in the NBA draft with wherever their pick ends up in the top 10. This pick has a chance to quite literally alter the course of the franchise if they really nail it. A team that is obviously quite expensive. You can add like a star level player on a rookie deal who you have team control of beyond that rookie deal. That really changes the shape of what the next handful of years can look like for the Raptors. And I'm not worried about position. I'm not worried about skill overlap. I'm just looking at find the guy who you think, Masai and Bobby, can be the best player when you are up and picking. I'm usually not like a best player available guy because I think best player available is a silly phrase used by draft nicks when it's really just like an eye of the beholder thing, and it could be different for everybody. But I do think swing for the super high upside guys like Jeremiah Fears, Kaman Malawach, who I think as a defensive upside guy has immense ceiling to tap into. Noah Essengay out of France, I think, is a pretty high upside as well. Those are the types I want the Raptors to be looking at here in this draft, because if they nail this pick, man, holy crap, things get real interesting real quick. What say you to this one?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think, again, the ramifications of the second apron, the lack of flexibility that's coming up, it absolutely makes sense to do that. And yeah, as a guy who was, Tank Nation all season, absolutely go get the most talented guy out there.
Yeah, and we'll get into, of course, in the next many months, our draft coverage and where I think guys are in terms of upside. I think there's some guys, your Trey Johnsons of the world, Kasparis Yakachonis, who declared yesterday. I think just sort of looking at their like athletic build and the stuff they did in college, those are kind of guys I would classify as sort of lower upside guys, potentially very good players, but not like star players. I really want them to just like, it could be boom or bust, right? But you have a good enough team that I think you can kind of afford a boomer bust pick right now because the boom is very loud and very important if things all break right for this team. Again, we'll have plenty of draft coverage in the months to come. A lot of you kind of know where I'm at with a lot of these guys. And hey, maybe things get easy on lottery night and they just get the first overall pick and it's just decided for them. You just get the highest upside guy, Cooper Flagg, sent north to Toronto. Big V, what is your top priority if you're the Raptors front office this summer?
My top priority is looking at the 3-point shooting on the roster and figuring out what is the best path forward. And,
Sure.
obviously we know that the Raptors were dead last in threes attempted in frequency rate in the non-corner three category. That's the thing that's got to go up for me. And I think if you look internally, you would probably say, okay, how can we get Grady Dick to up that percentage? How do we get Scottie Barnes to up that percentage? How do we get RJ Barrett to get back to what he was shooting a year ago
Sure.
in that limited sample size? But if you feel like you look at the roster and say, hey, you know what, that's not going to quite cut it, and you're looking at getting to at least like league average and saying we need a personnel change beyond Brandon Ingram, I think that's where you explore what possibilities are there and who can be someone that can be a consistent 3-point shooter. You obviously have reliability with quickly, and obviously Brandon Ingram, if he can continue what he's shown the last couple seasons, attempting 6-7 threes a game and shooting it at a pretty good clip. But beyond that, how do you make up for possibly both Yak and Scottie not really giving you much from there?
Sure. Yeah, totally fair. 3-point shooting, pretty important in today's NBA. There's no doubt about it. I do think the Raptors are maybe in less dire straits, just like shooting talent wise, than they were maybe a couple of years ago or even just a year ago, frankly. Like, I think you go up and down the roster. I mean, Jamison Battle shot 40.5% on 4.5 attempts a game this year. Obviously, an excellent shooter. Can he fill out the rest of his game to stay on the floor? We'll see, but the shooting is going to give him an in for quite some time, one would think. Ochai Agbaji, 39.9%. Awesome. Emmanuel Quickly, 38% on crazy high volume, very high difficulty shots, above the breaks, so sort of defense bending 3-point shooting. That's a huge deal. And he wasn't available for the first half of the season, which clearly dragged down some of their overall numbers as well. Grady Dick, I expect there's a better than 35% 3-point shooter in there somewhere. And I think especially from the corners, he's been really good or was really good as a rookie. I think there is certainly just like a damn good shooter in there somewhere. And I do think to an extent, he's someone who has enough gravity with like reputation alone that the percentage matters a little bit less for him. It's more just about the functionality of what his shooting threat does to defenses. And I think that's already there for him. Of course, it's nice if a few more of those are going down. Jacoby Walter shot 35% on the year, but if you count up the first 10 games of his season after he just got back from injury, joined the team on the fly, he shot 39% from deep over his last 42 games. I'm considering that one interesting for sure. And so, yeah, you go on down the list and yeah, after that, it gets a little bit lean. Jamal Shed kind of fell back down to 32%. Can he kind of tick things back up and continue the progress there? I'm assuming there's a better than 20 something percent 3-point shooter in Scottie Barnes at some point in the future. You hope. He talked about the hand at yesterday and sort of they're not running away, as Bobby Webster said, from the shooting thing with him. I think they're going to work on it hard to get him back to somewhere approaching league average-ish. But yeah, beyond that, adding some more shooting certainly would not hurt here. And man, it would be cool if they could find some kind of stretch from a big man. It's a difficult thing to do though, Big V.
It is a difficult thing to do, but that is where I have it as my number 2. And so for me, if you look at this roster, you look at the way things are shaping out in terms of depth, I do think that is one area the Raptors have to consider. You were about to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, let's pick that up on the other side as we get into our
Let's do
second
that.
top priorities. Yeah. Sorry, got to keep the train humming along and hitting all of our stops along the way here as the conductor of this here locomotive. But yeah, we'll come back on the other side here, Big V, and we'll pick that thread up and talk about the big man situation in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Hungry Root, and spring is here and life is busier than ever between work, family, everything in between. Who has time for grocery shopping and meal prep? I sure don't, and I don't even have the child I'm expecting this summer in my life yet, and I still find myself just like not wanting to go to the grocery store, even though I kind of like going to the store. There's just not enough time for that in the day. That's why I use Hungry Root. It makes eating healthy, getting good groceries and delicious meals simple and stress-free. Hungry Root tailors your orders based on what you like or don't like, and it gets smarter every single time. It's like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist wrapped into one. They take care of the grocery shopping and meal planning, offering personalized recommendations based on your tastes and health goals. Of course, they have high-quality, nutritious food. You can stick your gut-friendly, high-protein diet without spending hours planning as well. Meals come together in 15 minutes or less, and they give you more time for workouts, families, hobbies, and listening to really cool, fun basketball podcasts. Take advantage of the exclusive deal. This exclusive deal, they get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. You heard that right. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA. Use the code LockedInNBA. That's code, excuse me, code LockedInNBA at hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA for 40% off and a lifetime free item. You don't ever have to buy spinach again, baby. Do it. hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Back at it here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Sportsnet, Raptors in 7, Basketball Insiders, cricket commentary, nice beards, all of it. It's all there. It's a full package. Big V, see how uncomfortable the compliments are? Come on.
I said thank you.
Look at me. I can take a compliment like a normal person. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get to our second priorities. You talked about backup big man play. I'm interested to hear your take on this one. I think people who listen to this podcast know that I'm less concerned about backup big play for a few reasons. One, I think most backup bigs kind of stink. They're the backup catchers of basketball. Like, everyone needs one. They all are kind of not so good, except for maybe a couple exceptions here and there. And then sometimes your team trades away all the good backup catchers and you have Taylor Heineman playing a whole bunch of time. Taylor Heineman? I don't even know. He's actually been their best hitter this season. So what am I complaining about? Either way, backup center play. Another reason I'm less concerned about it is I think Scottie Barnes and Jonathan Mobo have the juice to fill in as small ball fives quite a bit next season behind Jakob Poeltl, who can clearly carry something close to a 30-minute a night load, especially if he's knocking in 67% of his free throws, baby. So, Big V, what's your thought on the backup center? Is that a priority for you? Is that your priority number 2 for the Raptors this summer, finding backup center play?
It is for me. I do think that, when you look at the depth across the roster, that is probably one thing that I look at and say, oh, what happens if Yak's out? And so, and I think the other aspect of it is just the flexibility of the roster and in terms of being able to play in different ways.
Sure.
I think when they acquired Kelly Olynyk, Bobby Webster had said, it's like, hey, we want to see what a stretch big looks like next to Scottie. And I do think there is value in putting, especially, when you look at Ingram's dependence on the mid-range, to have someone that is a stretch 5 and can, bring that spacing effect, and you can play 5 out and go to that option. And I think, again, going back to the 3-point weakness that this team has, having that type of big will also, give you a better shot at improving those 3-point numbers.
It's totally fair. I guess for me, I have trouble with this one because I think it is a bit of a pie in the sky dream to go find yourself like a legitimate spacing backup big, because they kind of just don't exist. Like, maybe you take a swing on a guy who's a more established college player with some 3-point stretch with the 39th pick, whatever it ends up being. I think it's 39th from the Portland Trailblazers. But like, as a second round pick being like a regular rotation piece for you next year, I'm not so sure. It's a really interesting one though, because like having just like diversity in the skill sets you have among your bigs is clearly a valuable thing. And a lot of the best teams have it. You think about the Toronto Raptors that won the championship and the amount of different ways they could play with their bigs and the sort of liberties that they had because Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka could both shoot threes. Like, yeah, it's a big deal. I just, it's such a hard thing to find. There's maybe like a dozen actual spacing big men in the NBA who matter, who have enough two-way juice to stay on the floor, that it's like, you can put it as high as you want on your priority list. You just might not find it. So I kind of have it a little bit more tucked away as like, oh, that'd be nice, but not quite a top priority. And I do think like Scottie Barnes and Jonathan Mobo playing backup five is a way to kind of give you some stylistic diversity and get more shooting into lineups just in a different way. But what were you going to say?
I was going to say, what if we just word it as like a spacing front court player? It doesn't necessarily have to be a five, but when I say it as a big, like it could be a four that's still playing next to Scottie or Mobo, you know, at the five, because obviously they've shown a capability to take on, bigger matchups. And so, as long as it's someone who, let's say if it's just someone who's kind of like Chris Boucher, but maybe gives you a bit more size and a bit more strength at that position. I think that's something that would still make you feel more comfortable, say, in the situation where Yak is out a little bit, and you don't want to task Scottie and Mobo with that much as, say, for example, a starting five.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going like dream outcomes, I think there's two guys who come to mind is like, oh my God, if they could find a way to get those guys on the team, things change significantly. And I think the probability that they get one of these guys on the team is like 0.5% at best. Santi Aldama out of the Grizzlies, who are an expensive, weird team that just fired their coach. Who knows what's going to happen this summer? Maybe there's a way you can weasel in there and get Santi Aldama on some kind of sign-in trade as he is an RFA this summer. Would be incredible. I think Santi Aldama absolutely rules, and the idea of him next to Scottie Barnes in a front court, yeah, that sounds pretty tight to me. The other guy is Naz Reid, who's a UFA this summer. I don't know how you're getting in on that because you're expensive, and again, it necessitates sign-in trades and probably ends up moving RJ Barrett out, which we'll talk about in a second here. Which, like, do the Wolves want RJ Barrett? Probably not with the situation they're in. Naz Reid's pretty damn helpful for that team. He's really good. They're surely just going to pay him, one would think, now that their ownership stuff seems to be a little less murky than it was before. But those types of guys, hot damn, that would rule. I do think, let me ask you, like, if there is a move out there, let's say it's a trade, like, and we don't have to go into specific targets because that's hard to do on the fly, but what would you be willing to part with if you're the Raptors in order to go and make this front court upgrade happen? Is it a thing where you like maybe trade Ochai Agbaji plus that Blazers pick to sweeten the pot a little bit to a team for like a roster balancing move? Is there, a bigger deal where RJ Barrett's the outgoing piece attached to other stuff? If you're really trying to swing big, like what's your sort of ideal vision of how they sort of execute this priority of needing some stretch in the front court?
Yeah, I think you've pretty much covered it right there. If you're looking at a bigger trade, you're probably looking at RJ. If you're looking at just, a role player type, then you are leaning towards Ochai and seeing, where his improvement has taken you to and elevated those kind of trade conversations. But beyond that, I think it'd be really tough. If for whatever reason there was sort of a bigger point guard that became available, or you move up in the draft and you did get that big point guard that we're all fascinated by, then maybe Emmanuel quickly enters the discussion.
Sure.
And so I think, yeah, the draft is going to have a good chunk to do with it, and what piece you get out of that. But yeah, I think beyond that, the pieces you would put at the top are probably RJ for a bigger trade and then Ochai for more ancillary stuff.
I'm going to throw out one name that I think is pretty interesting who might fit exactly this bill, not too sort of lofty a guy to go and attain. The less good Jalen Williams with the OKC Thunder. The Thunder have a million players. They also like Ochai style players who are like 6'5" and are just kind of nasty defenders who shoot threes. Maybe they, have too much of those guys. I don't know. But they also they're not gonna be able to pay everyone on that team. Maybe it doesn't take Ochai at all. Maybe it's just you take him back. He's on a rookie deal. It's not too much money. You find another way to make it happen. But maybe Sam Presti loves draft picks. You serve up that 39th looking pick on a little silver dish. You take the top off. It's steaming like a freshly cooked lobster. How is he passing that up in exchange for Jalen Williams? I don't know. But Jalen Williams over his career, maybe not the most durable guy in the world, but 40% from three this year, 37% the year before, 40% as a rookie. Kind of just does nice backup big things for you. Again, not like the sexiest addition of all, but I don't think you're playing in a super sexy market at the moment. And so, yeah, I think if you're looking at a backup center, that's probably the kind of range you're playing in. And I do think the Thunder are a team to watch because they're just not going to pay everybody on that team. Williams is in the same situation as Ochai, going into his fourth year, due for an extension this summer. Maybe they just pay him. Maybe they don't want to do that. And he becomes someone you can go and snag in the summer for a cheap price as they look to kind of cycle guys through that roster, which seems like what they're going to do with all those picks they have for the next 10,000 years. We'll come back on the other side. We're going to pick up the thread on RJ Barrett and run through a couple more priorities. We might not get to all priorities we had laid out for this episode because, look, we just have such good stuff to talk about that we've already dove into. So we're very good at podcasting. What can you say? We just have such great things to say about our topics. We're going to come back on the other side, rattle through as many of our remaining priorities as we possibly can, close out the show. We'll do that in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When was the last time you had a service emergency? If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications all through an app on your phone or computer. I am someone who has constantly struggled with work-life balance and separating professional and personal, and is that damn device that keeps everything all in one spot. And I don't like it very much. With Open Phone, you don't have to carry two phones around, but with Open Phone, you also get to have that separation because you have the desktop app or your phone app where you get to go and use it on your desk or on the go, whatever it might be. It separates things and makes it just super easy to make sure you have all your business stuff all in one place so you don't have to worry about missing calls, missing messages, missing important things that could have happened. You also get AI call transcripts and summaries, so you save time on follow-ups and ensures you never lose track of customer interaction. Open Phone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you're switching from another service, Open Phone will even port your existing numbers over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Wrapping it up here with Big V Vivek Jacob as we continue to run through our off-season priorities list. Check for your Toronto Raptors. Let me get back to one of mine here because we spent too damn long talking about your backup big, your precious backup center. RJ Barrett talked yesterday, and I think the general vibe out of the team yesterday, as I talked about on the podcast Monday and in the newsletter Monday, is everyone seems very excited about next year. Everyone seems very much thinking they're going to be back and part of this and looking forward to making it all work as one whole. I think Brandon Ingram, Scottie Barnes, there was a lot of talk between both of them about sort of adaptation. Ingram talked about, just kind of wanting to fit into how the team plays. We know how the team plays. It's an egalitarian ball-sharing offense. He should be able to provide some more pop to it, but I don't think we're going to see them run a whole bunch of ISOs for him. Jakob Poeltl talked about this as well in terms of how Ingram figures to fit into the mix. And Scottie Barnes just basically was like, yeah, I just kind of want to pass, man. It's all I've ever wanted to do is pass. And I'm excited to do that again.
Bobby said it.
I do think, what's that?
Bobby said it. Scottie wants to pass the ball and Ingram Brandon wants to shoot it.
It's perfect. And I do think if both of those guys are assuming those roles and, making the concessions needed to make it all work, there's room for RJ Barrett to fit in with that. I think he talked yesterday about his cutting, about looking to finish off the ball. We've talked a lot on this show. I think there's kind of a misunderstanding of what made RJ Barrett good when he came to the Raptors, and it's less time with the ball in his hands. I think there was a lot of excitement this year of, he's got some extra pick and roll craft. He's running the offense. That was out of necessity because Scottie Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley were out for the first chunk of the season, and RJ was forced to do a lot with the ball in his hands. The efficiency wasn't great. The playmaking was nice, sure, but the efficiency fell off a cliff. And I do think, to get back to what we saw when he first came over from the Knicks, he's got to have the ball in his hands for way less time, way less often. He's just got to be this sort of punishing play finisher who uses the gravity of others to get those sort of open pathways to the rim where he can finish. And I do think there's a world in which that is once again available to him as like a player design, just like a player archetype with Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes, both kind of, and sort of melding it and sort of meshing their games and making the adaptations needed to make it all work. That said, I think one of the priorities for the Raptors this offseason should be to probe for upgrades on RJ Barrett, not force the issue by any means, but if you can find an upgrade, whether it's at the 2-guard spot or like we talked about, a big swing for a front court player who maybe allows you to play jumbo ball where you slide Ingram to the 2, Scottie to the 3 even, and you bring in yourself a big 4 who maybe has some stretch, all of a sudden, I can get on board with the idea of moving RJ Barrett. I am not one of these people who's just like trading for parts, trading for a couple of bench guys, trading for depth. I don't think that's the move here. I think either you go into next season with Barrett and it's just like, we're going to go the full talent mode here and try to make it work with the best roster we have, or you go with an increased version of that by turning RJ Barrett into a better player, if that's out there at all. If it's not, then I'm not moving RJ Barrett and I'm not falling to the sort of idea of, oh, depth. Oh, we love depth. Like they're going to be deep anyway. Like you're going to complicate your minutes distribution and your issues that you're already going to have with getting guys in if you add 2 players for RJ Barrett in a sort of 2-for-1 type of swap. And so that's where I'm at with RJ. I think you certainly need to look around and see what's there. He's got 2 years left on his deal. He just had a pretty solid season. He might be attractive to some teams out there, maybe not all. He's a very specific type of player, but I think it's worth examining at the very least. Where are you at on this? And like, what kind of player do you sort of consider as the bar to have to clear to move RJ Barrett in exchange for that player?
Bar to have to clear. Well, let me start with this.
Let me throw out a name and you can say higher or lower. A guy I kind of kicked around at the deadline and sort of in the offseason was Cam Johnson. Really good, excellent shooter. Is Cam Johnson a good enough player to justify moving RJ Barrett for? And if not, like, where does the kind of upward limit go for you?
I think Cam Johnson is probably right at the sweet spot where you're trying to maybe talk to Brooklyn and be like, hey, can we squeeze anything more out of this?
Sure.
And then if not, you're still probably like, you know what, this might still make our team better anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really, really good comp that you'd look at in terms of what you would want out of this, because the other thing you're evaluating too is just a fit alongside the other guys. And I think that prototype would go really nicely next to Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes. So,
Totally.
I think you've nailed the head on in that one. I think in terms of evaluating RJ Barrett as a player and maximizing his trade value, I think there is an importance in having him start the season as a Raptor and saying, hey, that player who was super efficient at the end of last season, the reason the inefficiency wasn't there was because of everything that was going on this season.
Sure. It's context-based for sure.
So as opposed to going into conversations now and GMs just being like, hey, well, he's back to who we've known him to be. Mm-hmm. You hope that you go into a healthy start to 2025-26 and playing less on the ball and having less responsibility will get that efficiency back up. And then you can, again, make that argument, right?
Yeah.
So I see the value in that. And I think that's probably the best way to go to maximize what you're getting back for an RJ piece. And I think the other way, the other thing to consider too, is I do feel like now with the second apron, we are seeing more activity or teams being more open to deals coming up to the trade deadline than, maybe what was anticipated. And, I think there was a lot of talk about, oh, it's going to be quiet and, no one's going to touch anything. And then it was just boom, boom, boom. We got pretty much every big deal that you could possibly hope for. So I do think the way the last couple of years have trended coming up to the trade deadline might be a better avenue for the Raptors.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm perfectly okay if they bring RJ back. And frankly, it's like a vibes play. I think it's probably the better move. And maybe you don't care about vibes. Maybe you're just all about talent. But like, I don't know, man. The vibes seem exceptionally good for a team that just won 30 games. And I don't know if I'm messing with that entirely. Everyone seems to be pretty happy with what's going on. Everyone is pulling in the same direction. Everyone's on the same page. And maybe it's just as simple as you don't mess with it. You just kind of see where it goes and you see how it looks with Brandon Ingram. Maybe you miss out on something because you moved on from RJ too early and didn't get a look at it with Ingram. Maybe you don't. Like there's every possible. I know the RJ, sort of skeptics out there are just like, he's not efficient. Blah, 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 blah. He's not efficient. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, he's not. He wasn't this year. He's going to be in a different role next year. And I think the off-ball stuff he's shown he can have capacity for. The defense, we'll see, right? Like that's another big question. He had some moments of looking better at defense this year, other moments of looking very much like RJ Barrett of old on defense. And that's going to be a big determining factor here too. Can you carry that over onto a team that's competitive next season? I think using the next 4 or 5 months, the first 4 or 5 months of next year, first 4 months, I don't know what it is before the deadline, to just kind of get a gauge of what this all looks like. They're not under any duress to go and make a big swing to, optimize their title odds next season, right? They're still very much in we're figuring out what we've got mode, and they have a runway with the contracts that they have with Ingram, with Barnes, with Quickly, with the young guys they have. Like there's not like a huge time crunch here as much as there's always a time crunch. It's the NBA, but as far as compared to other teams goes, like, yeah, it's not like the clock is bearing down on them. So I don't see too much harm in going into the season and seeing what's up. But I think they got to probe. I think they got to see if there's an upgrade to be found out there where you can be opportunistic with, like you said, a lot of teams that are maybe getting a little itchy trigger fingers because either they lost and are sad or because the aprons are getting burdensome and all of that. Any last priorities for you, Big V? I have one quick one. We'll get to that in a sec here. But what do you have for me? Quick parting shot here as far as other priorities you want to see them try to fulfill.
Well, I won't put this on the front office. This is more of a coaching thing. And obviously, we've had a lot of talk about, oh, look at how many assists the Raptors have had. Look at how many passes they make. They're also 25th in turnover rate. And
Yeah,
I think,
sure.
maybe, with Darko's offense, you saw them color outside the lines a bit and be like, hey, let's just try to learn as much about this offense and, really, try to expand people's games and everything. And next year, I think you are going to need to see more discipline. And so in what ways can that be scaled back? In what ways can we see the decision making improve? And I'll put that on the coaching staff to maybe, just make the offense a bit more disciplined.
Yeah, that's a good one. I do think a lot of it is Jamal Shed led the team in minutes this year, and he was a rookie. And like had a few big crooked turnover games, and I think a lot of the rookie stuff that you saw from guys will be a little less rookie-ish next year, which will help. I think Emmanuel Quickly has been historically a very good ball security guy, and their turnover issues got a lot better after he came back. Scottie probably have the ball in his hands less. He's a little bit turnover prone. So yeah, I think there's already stuff kind of pointing in the direction of maybe that being a thing they can tamp down a bit. There's always going to be turnovers with the way they play because they pass the ball 1,000 times a game. But it's a really good one. Yeah. Trying to make the offense not bottom 5 would be pretty swell. And then my last one, this is a vibes pick. Just bring back Boucher and Temple. I don't care. Everyone seems to love both dudes. Garrett Temple was like one of the most talked about guys at media day yesterday among the players. Just like, I think there's a palpable value to having that specific guy because he just kind of seems like a one-of-one special stage old vet who's good for everybody on the team. And then Chris Boucher, I mean, like he was really good this year. I don't know if he's going to get a deal somewhere else. We'll see. I don't know if the fact that he didn't play in the final home game suggests there's already some kind of wink deal that he's going to be back. I don't know. But for vibes, I think both guys, I would rather have those guys than some biannual exception signing that, is your new Jalen McDaniels. That's kind of the market you're playing in with that kind of money. Don't think they're going to have their full mid-level available to them anyway. Just bring back your dudes and keep the vibes riding high. I guess vibes is my top priority for the summer, I suppose. Big V, anything you want to promote for the good people out there as we wrap this thing up?
The usual stuff, Raptors in 7. Once we get through all these season-ending press conferences, I'll have something up on that. And other than that, doing a lot of playoff coverage for Basketball Insiders. So you can go check that out. You can follow it all at Vivek Jacob.
Do that. You can also find me on Blue Sky at woodleyshawn.bsky.whatever. I don't know how it all works out. You can just look me up. I'm there. I'm doing the odd post every 3 days or something because posting, there's no joy in it left, man. The horrible bad faith posters have taken over and it's not fun no more. So we do the podcast and we do the damn newsletter. You can also subscribe to the newsletter for free. And right now, between now and the end of the month, if you subscribe, you'll be entered into a draw to win one of 3 prizes, either a $200 Fanatics gift card, a $300 Game Time gift card, or a $2,500 Best Buy gift card where you can buy a Nintendo Switch 2 and all of the accoutrement games to play. They're all going to be expensive, $2,500. That's probably what I'm going to spend on the Switch and related accessories and games this summer anyway. So why don't you go get yourself a gift card by subscribing to the newsletter, being entered into the draw, and you could win. That's pretty cool. So go sign on up. It's 100% free. I wrote about the players yesterday at Media Day, talking about the season that was. I'll be writing about Darko when he speaks a little later on today. And I'll be at Masai's presser tomorrow and writing off of that too. So lots of newsletter stuff covering all of the goodbye exit interviews that they're drawing out over 3 days because they just love us so much. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye. Big V, it's been so long since I hit this shot.
You got it, buddy.
I'm in my head
You got
now. I'm in my head.
Yeah,
baby! He's back on the board.